It sounds like you're describing a situation where the Trump administration was heavily criticized for its handling of a press conference related to issues in the transportation sector. Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, allegedly blamed the problems faced by the FAA and airports on the Biden administration, particularly focusing on the supposed Biden budget issue. This seems to be a tactic of shifting blame, even though the problems you mentioned, like radar shutdowns and flight safety issues, weren't prevalent during the Biden administration. You're also highlighting a curious element of the Trump administration's approach, where individuals with reality TV backgrounds like Sean Duffy are placed in serious government roles. You seem to find this ironic, considering Duffy's reality TV history as part of the Real World and Real World/Road Rules Challenge, and questioning the qualifications behind such appointments.
Listen, we've all been reporting and seeing what's happening at Newark Airport. And I think it is clear that the blame belongs with the last administration. Judge Joe Biden did nothing to fix the system that they knew was broken.
When asked by Sean Duffy to provide a specific date for when he plans to address the issues, he responds, "I didn't want to give you a date because then you'll just hold me accountable. Why would I give you a date?" Then he adds, "Here, play this clip."
We are pushing our contractors to actually fix these telecom issues that we have right now. And it was supposed to be the end of the summer. I don't want to give you a date because you're going to hold me to it, but we are pushing them to radically speed up the time frame in which they can deliver new telecom into the Philly TRACON, which should resolve the issues that we're experiencing over the last 2 weeks.
Next, Sean Duffy asks a fair question from the press. You've been claiming that this has been a decades-long issue at the Federal Aviation Administration, but Donald Trump was president for 4 years. So why didn't he fix it then? In response, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy actually blames the problems during Trump's first term on former President Biden, saying it was Biden's fault. Of course, he adds, "Here, play this clip."
You've been saying that this is a decades-old problem because you your leadership. So why didn't this administration initiate this?
Well, I think what we saw is the cracks that you are now seeing today were highlighted actually over the last 4 years. We were seeing more and more of it. The president has said this a number of times. He had a plan to come into the second part of his administration because he knew what was going on to actually fix it. Some money, some billions of dollars were allocated from the last administration to this effort, and it was wasted. You don't see any result of any money that's been spent over 4 years. And by the way, they had no problem spending money. They spent a lot of money, and they didn't spend the money here. The president was understanding the cracks at the end of his administration and was going to fix it 4 years ago. But the last administration, they did nothing about it. And so as things get old, you get to the point where you're starting to hear some rattles in your car. That's probably the sign you bring it to the shop. The last administration was hearing the rattles, and they basically kept driving and didn't do anything to fix it.
Shifting from Sean Duffy to Donald Trump's top propagandist, Caroline Leavitt, she was asked during an interview about the alleged $400 million 747 airplanes Trump accepted as bribes from Qatar. The question was whether this raises concerns, or if she believes the Umar and others in Qatar might use it to spy on the U.S. or exert influence. Leavitt responds by asserting that everybody knows Trump is honest and wouldn't put himself ahead of the United States of America. Despite clear violations of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution and obvious quid pro quo bribery, she defends the situation. The planes, she argues, were a personal gift to Trump for his presidential library, despite libraries not needing 747 jets. People are calling out this absurdity, but here she is defending it. Let's play this clip.
Clarify that Qatar is giving us a new Air Force One as a personal gift to President Trump. Are they gifting it to the country? What could you tell us about this luxury liner that looks like a hotel in the air?
Well, the Qatari government has graciously offered to donate a plane to the Department of Defense. The legal details of that are still being worked out, but of course, any donation to this government is always done in full compliance with the law, and we commit ourselves to the utmost transparency, and we will continue to do that.
Do you worry that if they give us something like this, they want something in return?
Absolutely not, because they know President Trump and they know he only works with the interests of the American public in mind.
In another press conference, I want to show you a different side of these briefings. This time, it's a Trump administration official, the Deputy Secretary of State, who's discussing immigration policy. He's essentially allowed unlimited access for immigrants to become American citizens if they're from South Africa. The reason he gives is that white South Africans would assimilate much better into the United States than other immigrant groups. If you're white and from South Africa, you can come to the US without much difficulty. I can't help but wonder where this policy came from. Elon Musk, anyone? Here, play this clip.
I think you may recall that on the President's first day in office, on January 20th of this year, he issued an executive order that paused U.S. refugee programs that had been going at record levels under the prior administration and had brought in people that we were not sure had been carefully vetted, national security issues, and put a pause on the refugee admission program in general. That pause, of course, was subject from the very beginning to exceptions where it was determined that this would be in the interest of the United States. Some of the criteria are making sure that refugees did not pose any challenge to our national security and that they could be assimilated easily into our country. So the President on February 7th issued an executive order about the egregious conditions in South Africa.
Do you hear the language they're actually using? By the way, just yesterday, Donald Trump claimed that the biggest genocide happening right now is in South Africa. He said there's a genocide taking place against white people in South Africa at this moment. This is what Trump said. Here, play this clip.
And again, we didn't have to be here. This did not have to be our story. Over the last 4 years, the last administration, they knew this was a problem. And by the way, during COVID, when people weren't flying, that was a perfect time to fix these problems. But again, they got $1.6 trillion for infrastructure, and virtually none of it went to fix the biggest American infrastructure problem that we have, which is our air traffic control system. And so what you see in Newark, we're gonna have to fix, we're gonna move fast, but we're gonna do it right. My concern is that we could see other situations like this around the country, because the system is old. It's old.
This regime has no depth to their depravity. Let me show you this line from Sean Duffy, where he says, you know, the real issue with the last administration is when COVID started. That should have been a great opportunity for them to deal with airports. I wonder which administration was also in charge when COVID started. Play this clip.
And maybe when you work from home, maybe when you work from Michigan as a secretary, you're not focused on the real issues that are taking place throughout the airspace. And that's what was happening at this department. They were focused on what we call a cockpit versus flight deck. We had to change notice to airmen to notice to air mission, right? That was the focus, as opposed to you have a cracking system.
Let me also be very clear. The Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which former President Biden actually pushed through as legislation, not the scammy fake executive orders Donald Trump puts out every day, provided billions of dollars to the FAA, about $28 to $30 billion, for a variety of things. By the way, Trump and Sean Duffy both want to stop this Infrastructure Act and block it. Then Sean Duffy starts defaming hardworking Americans. He says, if you're just some secretary in Michigan or some government worker, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're not focused on the real issues taking place. What is that supposed to mean? Here, play this clip.
In the system. So let's talk about what the Trump administration is doing moving forward to fix the problems that were left to us from the Biden Buttigieg administration. Now, while these temporary software fixes I mentioned earlier that worked on Sunday morning should prevent future outages, the core issue is telecommunication lines. Here's what we're doing to fix the telecom. One, I'll be requesting an OIG investigation into the failures of the last administration and the decisions that were made to move TRACON from N90 in New York down to Philadelphia, and the work that was done to plan for this move and making sure that the lines were hardened.
This is where Sean Duffy then says, let's tell you what we're doing to fix the Biden-Buttigieg administration issues. Again, as Brian Tyler Cohen points out, these problems happening now were not an issue under the Biden-Buttigieg administration. Play this clip. In Terror 9. Now more from Sean Duffy, who somehow describes the problems happening as being like a used car dealership. Play this clip.
You're placing a lot of blame on the previous administration. These problems are happening now under the administration. You just unlucky, or are there some real issues that need to be addressed under this current administration?
If you buy a used car, you drive it home, and go to bed, wake up the next morning, drive to the store, and it breaks down. Is it your fault, or is it the guy that you bought it from sold you a lemon, right? So we have to recognize, again, because I think a lot of the media...
Okay, enough with Sean Duffy. Here is Kevin Hassett, Donald Trump's former national economic advisor, who blames Canada for creating tensions with the United States. He says it's Canada's fault. Play this clip.
I'm hearing anecdotally about a lot of damage in demand from Canada, for example, just because, in part, of the breakdown in sentiment and feeling between us and them. Are you hearing the same, and what do you expect to happen from here?
No, I think that, again, there were some difficult times. I think that Justin Trudeau and the president didn't actually get along, and Canada kept making it worse and worse with their rhetoric. But now I think that we've had, the prime minister come in and meet with the president and begin a new, closer relationship. And so I'm sure everything will work out fine with Canada in the end.
And finally, here's Laura Trump, who's basically a spokesperson for the Trump regime at this point, and she has a show on Fox. She says, look at what's going on in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and all of Trump's trips to the Middle East. This is just part of a big, beautiful friendship that all Americans will benefit from. This is Trump doing this. Trump's got to have that gold palace in the sky for Americans. Here, play this
Well,
clip.
look, I think having a great relationship with the Middle East is a very positive thing for the whole world, but especially for the United States. And if you remember, he had a very big trip to Saudi Arabia. I think it was his first overseas trip during his first administration. And that's been a beautiful friendship and a beautiful relationship, of course, for President Trump, but I think for the American people. We want allies in that region. We want to make sure that people are on the same page as we are. And I think if you talk to many of those other Middle Eastern countries, they'll tell you they are not in favor of this Israel-Hamas situation. They are not in favor of what they see Iran doing. And we want to have people on our side. We want to keep everything, as we use the word friendly with everybody. And I think that's going to be the result, of course, at the end of this.
As I've said, there's no depth to the depravity of these people. Americans should be able to afford homes when they're working. They shouldn't have to face the psychological torture of living paycheck to paycheck, especially when they're working jobs. And they should only have to work one job. There's no reason they should have to juggle multiple jobs and worry about whether they can afford food or keep their children fed and clothed. You can lie all you want, Trump and MAGA, and claim that prices are down and everything is solved and incredible. But we can look at our pensions, our 401 KISS, our bank accounts, and we can see what these prices are doing. We know they're going up. And yet this regime wants to lie about everything and blame others, which is the opposite of leadership. But we, the people, know what's really going on here. And it's clear when you look at all of those disastrous press conferences. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe and let's get to 1 million subscribers.